AI first, the definition. Beginning every single task by collaborating with an agent to plan, allowing the agent to execute as much of that plan as possible, and then iterating on its skill until you can trust it to execute it well every time. That is AI first.
So start every task with Claude.
Every task.
And have a system to improve Claude to get your task done.
Yes.
And do you think everybody at Thanks is there?
I do.
Hey everybody, I am Sterling Douglas, co-founder and CEO at Chally, a digital platform for everything outside the four walls for the restaurant. And with me is Aaron Newton.
Hi, I'm Aaron Newton. I'm Chief Data Officer at Thanks and serial startup guy who never stops building things.
That was a little boring, but sounds good. And this is AI for Restaurants, a show where two practitioners who actually use AI and talk to restaurants every single day, discuss what's really working in restaurants, and have some fun along the way. Do you feel like you've been building more recently than you have before, Aaron, or less?
I'm going to have to go back to that check you just made. Now I feel like the next intro, I'm going to have to come up with something that really throws you off your game.
You should. Yeah. Try me. I'm pretty light on my feet.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm a haberdasher too or something. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to have to see if I can get you.
I'm a Sagittarius, and you know.
Am I building more? Well, you know what? For many years, my GitHub account was full of open source contributions and building things and stuff like that. And then I became an executive, and I stopped doing all those things. And all the engineers around me were relieved because I was never really that good at it. And yeah, I spend more time now building things than I have in years. The number of commits that I make to GitHub and to projects that I'm on is just nonstop.
I am in the same boat. Before 2025, I had committed 0. And in the last week, I think I've done like 50.
So I have a question for you there. You know,
what am I building? What is a CEO actually committing?
Well, so there's an old Tom Waits song, what's he building in there, you know, and you won't believe what Mr. Stitches saw. I wonder about, you know, where you throw your energy. Like I talk a lot about some of the crazy things that I've come up with, but what has been, I don't know, the biggest surprise to you, like how much leverage you've got by going deep on something for Chally, not yourself, because you do a lot of hacking on your own personal productivity. But when you turn your attention outward to, I'm going to make the business go faster or solve problems for my team, what has been the biggest home run there?
I think the biggest thing is I usually use the personal stuff to kind of go do proof of concept and kind of learn new things to stay on the bleeding edge. And once I discovered agents and kind of this whole kind of idea of how an agent could work and how it could be set up, that is a huge unlock, because then at Chally, and my CRO, Tom, deserves a ton of credit here, but we have 15 live and working go-to-market agents at any one time. It's one of the ways that we've been able to grow as fast as we can, as efficiently as we've been able to.
Okay, so agent to me has like 5 different flavors of meaning. You know, like a sub agent is just another Claude that is doing something until it's done and gives it back to the main agent or whatever. But it sounds like you're really leaning into like the autonomous AI with agency definition of agent there.
Yeah. So I think there's probably 2 parts of the agents for how I think about them. One is designing the context, and then one is designing the triggers. So when I think of context, you have kind of your standard special instructions. You have, you are an SEO expert. Here are some guidelines and principles. Here's the research. Here's things you believe in. You have some personality in there, like you are a creative thinker when it comes to keywords. You do look past just the surface level. You look at long tail keywords, and then you kind of give it this context. It gets its own universe. So now it has this specialty and has a different kind of set of goals that it drives towards. So to me, that's all context. So you create very specialized context for it. Then you also do the tools as well. So like this one has, it can't just have web, right? Because like in Claude Code, for example, like web fetch, which is what most people use when they're trying to get, stuff from the internet, that actually translates the HTML into a markdown file, and you get basically like a summarized version of the website. You actually have to do a specific curl request to actually get the true HTML for you to do like the true type of SEO things. You can touch H1 tags and FAQ components and schema.org stuff. And so making sure all that context and all that tools, tool access and knowledge is there. And then you have the triggers. Like what triggers it? And so this one, whether it is something that you pull like every couple minutes for because you want it to be near live, if you want it to be basically pulled on an event. So for us, like our SEO agent, every time we book a demo or we book a pitch, SEO agent basically sees that that's been booked. It knows the website, and then it goes and performs an entire analysis on it. And that's part of the data that we end up delivering to the restaurant on that pitch, where we basically tell them, here's what we found with your website. Here's some things that you can fix with
Because that's
us
a
or with
problem your
someone
platform
else.
solves.
Right. But
Yeah.
we'll give them all the information. They can go do it themselves
Right.
if they really want to. But that's like a trigger. And then sometimes you do daily triggers. We have data cleanup triggers. Sometimes you might do, monthly ones. And so whether it's on a schedule, whether it's kind of near interest on polling, or whether it's based on a particular event, when I think of agents, they need to have some type of autonomy, like autonomous triggers so they can actually do the work. And then they have a specialty in what they know and then how they get the work done.
Okay, so you said you had 15?
Just, yeah, and the go-to-market, 15.
Wait, just meaning, there's like 900 more, but we're just talking about go-to-market for a second.
Yeah. We have customer success agents. We have our email marketing agent for our product. Like
and in this context, all of those things that you call agents have some sort of automated, triggered autonomy about them. That's the definition of an agent. It's not a thing that a customer success agent might invoke to prepare for a meeting. It is
right.
It is itself seeing that they have a meeting and preparing it.
Yeah, getting them prepared for it, right? So every time, like we have the, our deck creator, which takes in the data from all the other agents and then produces it in a nice deck. So we have something that we can share with the customer. But like all that's done, all of this is done in enablement. In the old days, right? Like, a BDR or an account executive, like a salesperson, they have hours of research that they would have to do every week as part of their job. You have to go research the leads. You got to find the numbers. You got to like create all these follow-ups. You got to find this data. We get to take all of that out of the equation, right? We have something that knows the internet. We have something that knows the best practices, and we can train it to be able to deliver it in a way that the account executive and the sales rep can ingest it really, really, really fast so that they only spend 5 minutes preparing for it, and they're able to deliver that data to the prospect and provide value before they even sign a contract with us.
I just have to pause. I feel like whenever I hang out with people, like I did this morning, I had one of my boot camp classes with like a dozen people in the restaurant industry, and they're, I'm up there at the front of the room saying, the virtual room, I too don't feel like I'm on top of this thing because they all don't feel on top of this thing. And so when I'm thinking about it and like what they're going through, I'm like, I'm there with you. I am in the same place. On the one hand, there are things that I'm doing where I'm like, I think I might be a little out ahead of most. Maybe I'm in the 1% of people doing this thing. And then I hear you talk about stuff like this, and I'm like, man, we are not doing enough of that. And this is maybe the overwhelming feeling that I think everybody has, which is, you're like, all right, I'm going to start working on the appetizer and I'm going to make this thing. And then you look over and you're like, oh, I got to do the main course. And you start, but the appetizer, like the dessert, it's
the
everywhere.
Food envy. You have AI envy, agent envy.
I do. So I asked you where you're getting the most leverage. Now I just have more questions. So you have not just 15 agents that are doing go-to-market. You have, once you establish the pattern of a thing that proactively helps you get work done and be successful, now everyone in your organization is tapping into this concept and running things on a cadence so that every meeting is prepared for, every sales opportunity is scheduled, every whatever. Go back to the meager 15 that are the things that you view as the top shelf of that story. Like, I don't know, can you name the 15, like what their jobs are? I don't know if you want, you don't have to, that might be too much, but maybe name the 2 or 3 that you feel like are the ones who carry most of the weight or whatever.
Yeah. So we've got, the pre-demo research agent. That's a big one. The deck creator. There's a Slack agent actually that we have that basically will surf a lot of the conversations to get more context on particular deals to make sure that anything in there gets kind of delivered to it. Internally on our product side, our email agent's really good because it'll basically analyze the past campaigns. It knows all of the holidays and sporting events, and then it can make suggestions off of it. Those are probably the ones of payment. And then like the SEO one that we use that just like constantly is adjusting kind of the long tail keyword stuff for our sites. Like those are the ones that I probably think the most about because those were the ones that were the most time consuming. And those are the ones that you just got them faster, cheaper, and they're better quality. So those are the ones I think that really made the biggest impact.
I don't know, is there a gap that you think about now that you're right? Here it is, March 20th, you're living in the future moment and you're like, oh, there's a blind spot right over here. I can't wait to fill it.
Yeah. In one of the previous episodes, you talked about this ridiculously amazing reporting structure that you guys had put together. And I sat there with AI envy being like, we don't have a Sherlock. I've been actually trying to do this. This has been a problem I've been stuck on. I haven't been able to spend time on this. And so it's one of the reasons that I'm trying to get as many, I'm trying to always enlist others. I mean, when I started getting into AI and then Tom came on the go-to-market, our CRO, he was able to actually end up build and really execute on a lot of those agents.
Mm-hmm.
And so and it's something I've always admired about you is that like, you're so good at bringing everybody else along in it. And whereas mine has been more one-on-one with individuals, you've kind of like scaled yourself a little bit.
So that's a good way to put
bringing
it.
Your company on.
I view it as two pieces. So one is persistence, and you and I both are doggedly persistent just at solving different problems. And indeed, it's why it's so fun to hang out together, because I'm watching you be doggedly persistent. It's like we're each pushing a different boulder up the hill and waving from our mountainside kind of thing, right? But we're both persistent in the pushing of it all the way to the top until it rolls down. We do it again. I've been very persistent in helping others make it on this journey. And some of it's one-on-one. Literally last night, I spent 2 hours with a good friend who works in an organization as an engineer, and AI adoption is really thin. And I'm like, you will not have a job soon unless you get started learning this new way of working. And I'm like brain dumping how I'm working and how others are working. And he's building things on his own just to build the skill because he knows he's going to have to go get a new job soon or else he's going to get left behind. And so that's a one-on-one setting. But then I do the boot camp thing happened accidentally. I accidentally hacked marketing and I don't know how. Like I just raised a hand and said, who wants to learn? I like to teach. But internally, I've been doing the same thing now for literally a year. And it's like, I would say in March this year, 13, 14 months after I had my first team meeting where I was just like, you guys have got to get moving. The whole company is now in an AI first mindset. It just took a really long time.
How do you define that? How do you know when you've adopted that mindset?
When the whole company has done it, or what is my definition of AI first?
When the whole company has done it, like done what? What have they done where you feel like, all right, like this milestone has been reached?
I'm going to define, I have a definition for AI first. This is from one of my many slides. AI first, the definition: beginning every single task by collaborating with an agent to plan, allowing the agent to execute as much of that plan as possible, and then iterating on its skill until you can trust it to execute it well every time. That is AI first.
So start every task with Claude.
Every task.
And have a system to improve Claude to get your task done.
Yes.
And do you think everybody at Thanks is there?
I do.
Wow.
I mean, I don't have perfect visibility into every single human being here. It's a big company now in terms of like my familiarity with every single function, but I can see it playing out. You know, like we have a channel called AI Show and Tell where people share their creations. And I just posted about this on LinkedIn where we have another AI that's reading those shares and categorizing them into Notion. So we have kind of like you can go ask Notion AI who's building all that kind of stuff. And it knows what department the person is in and stuff like that. And that graph, first off, it goes whoop, like it's like March happened. It's like this. In 1 week, 25 new skills or pieces of software or workflows or automations were created. 25 in a week. That's 5 a day. And it felt like the GIF from Community where he comes back with the pizza and everything's on fire, you know? So that channel just took, I just remember posting like, this channel is nuts now. But if you break it out by department, there is not a department that's absent. 100% of them are participating. Sales, support, CSMs, executives, finance, of course, engineers, of course, product. Like everyone is doing stuff. And it's not just engineering. The actual biggest contributor was the ops team. The engineers have a different channel where they talk about making AI work to write software, different channel. But this is where people share things that we did to make our jobs go faster. So I do feel like I'm no longer in the mode of having to go drag an individual or one or two teams across the line of getting started. And now it's like downhill. It's like just gathering steam.
how do you like? So we'll put everything that the ops team has built in the vibe code category because that's where I view myself. So
I don't know,
build,
man.
I always view it. I don't know if that's true, but
They're like building RAG databases and agents that respond to customer inquiries and stuff.
That's awesome. All right, so like, how do you manage that? Because like they're not engineers, they don't like they likely don't have a great understanding of staging environments or writing unit tests or like doing some of the development standards. Like how do you manage it when like everybody can write code because you want to use these, but if everyone's doing their own thing, it gets unwieldy so fast. How do you manage that?
My philosophy has been first get everyone into motion before you add too much governance, because your friction of your governance will just make your adoption effort that much harder.
Yeah. All right, let's say you got governance, then what's next?
So you have no governance. You have
no governance.
I shouldn't say no. You have some red lines, and those red lines are things like you do not publish software to the internet.
And you do not download OpenClaw.
You do not. That's actually on the list. You do not download anything like that. No third-party skills. If you see a skill that you like, go talk to Claude about what you like about it and build your own. I've got my tinfoil hat on about a bunch of those things. No API keys checked into Git. We have some shared plugins that help you avoid making common mistakes.
So I got some base rules, but then like
no PII in the LLM chat, stuff like that, right? So then there's a little bit of governance, but our general philosophy is burn as many tokens as you can, and we'll make sure that it's worth value later. We'll sort it out later.
Where do they put it?
So most of the staff that is, when I say everyone is now there, the more technical staff are creating applications that they can run locally. And then a few of them are creating applications that get vetted by a technical staff and they become hosted. And so it's like there's a graduation into I am ready to write something that might live on the internet.
So all the stuff that doesn't get hosted, where does that go? Is it just living on their local, or
it's in GitHub?
You train everybody on GitHub.
Well, I mean, Claude knows everything about GitHub.
So everybody, all the vibe coders,
I literally saw
they push code to GitHub.
Yeah, I have sales team. Literally, I saw a sales chat earlier today. Megan said, "I did a thing. It's really awesome." Kyle is like, "Where is this thing?" And Megan's like, "It's in GitHub, of course." And then Judy's like, "Oh, which GitHub repo? Oh, thanks." It's like those are salespeople having a conversation because they want to steal from each other. The people who are not building applications are writing skills. They're creating invocable skills that help them prepare for the next thing. But it doesn't have all the automation harnesses that you have. But now with co-work, increasingly they are having those things do it, but it's running inside of Claude.
Got it.
But your point is a Wild West. It is chaotic.
Well, but I also think the point is that I don't think it's an assumption or obvious that one of the solves to managing this is to get non-engineers and non-product people in GitHub.
Yeah.
I don't think that's obvious. It wasn't obvious to me. I mean, we do the same thing. We have a separate org, right? We have our biz ops org, which is separate from where all of our actual applications live. But the repos are there, and that was what we ended up doing. But it wasn't obvious to us. I had no clue how we were going to... I mean, our head of HR vibe coded this amazing training app, and it was living in Replit. And then all of a sudden, it was like, well, yeah, just put it in GitHub. If she can vibe code this whole app in Replit, she can obviously, with the help of Claude, do GitHub as well.
Yeah.
And so I think that point is... Like, it took us a bit to learn that.
Yeah.
But it seems so simple and normal.
I think another piece is that
because Claude does most of the work.
We created so many easy on-ramps. Like we created an application called Keystone, which effectively aggregates all of our business data into a single MCP, but it also has security baked into it. So it doesn't, for example, allow you to pull PII through it. It masks it. So it's got a bunch of things like that about it. And so access to business data is really easy to get started with. And then we have a getting started guide in Notion that Claude itself can read. But it starts with get started with Claude, point Claude at this page. Now work with Claude to do all of these steps. And so
it's the bootstrap. Yeah.
And so Claude knows about Git and that it should do those things. But it kind of brings, another problem we have is like, you can't get good adherence to just putting everything in Claude MD. At least that's been my experience. And so we tend to push everything in, like encourage people to like write skills, circulate skills, write applications that run locally, circulate those things. And then when we have something that we think like, wow, this really should be online as a service, then we start thinking about how do we incorporate that into our actual hosted infrastructure, But we don't want people who don't know how to do that pushing things into the internet space. That's too dangerous.
Yeah, not without some process and some education. Yeah, you called out the Claude MD and the adherence thing. It is interesting because when a lot of people, when I'm working with them, they're in there for the first time, right? Whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Claude Code, they're just kind of sitting there and they just kind of ask it to do something. You don't realize it knows nothing about them. Like it knows nothing about them. And so unless you're writing a super detailed prompt, which you're probably not going to be able to since it's your first time in there, like you're just going to get garbage results, like garbage in, garbage out. And so I always am like, all right, do you have anything in your system prompt or your special instructions, your Claude MD file? There's a bunch of different names for this, but like that base set of instruction that gets loaded into every session that you start. And that was how I got started. And then eventually, once I did that a few times, I ran into the same adherence problems that you ran into, right? Like because it got too long. And it was getting drift and it doesn't survive compactions and all this stuff. And that's when I discovered projects. And then this was before skills came out. And then I discovered skills.
I mean,
right?
you and I went on the same journey because those things came out at the same time. But I definitely now at a place where it's all skills and almost nothing in Claude MD.
Yeah, but also you have basically a Claude MD because you have that welcome get started with Claude bootstrap file, because that is going to give Claude just enough context and you're going to be able to either preload skills or whatever you can. Because without that, if you give it no context, if you give it nothing, it's going to be really tough for you to get really good output from it because you haven't figured out the context engineering behind it. Now, since you guys have the bootstrap and skills, you solve it. But another way to solve it is just, so my first time using you, can you ask me 10 questions and help me build a base set?
Yeah.
And that's one of those ways you can at least get started and you can at least have something and you can start to kind of go on that journey and your brain starts clicking as you do more and more of it.
I have seen, so my wife, she got started with Claude in late January. Now she's all in on it. Before I had time, it's like I was giving her like piecemeal, like now do this thing and I'll come back. And then a week later, now let's do this thing and I'll come back. I was trying not to like make her feel overwhelmed by everything I could teach her. And it worked really well. Like she's happy, I'm happy, happy wife, happy life. But one of the things is that before we really sat down and talked about skills a lot, she was teaching Claude how to do stuff, but it was just putting in its memory files. Yeah. And so Claude's memory files are now like quite adept at remembering things that you care about, and you can teach it routines. But I find that their location is somewhat inscrutable and difficult to manage. It's hard to put them into Git and to be deliberate about them. And so that is one of the things that I do have in Claude MD is like that my preference is skills. I want you writing skills. You're allowed to use memory for esoteric things that don't belong in the skill, like, a path to a file that doesn't belong in the skill, but it's relevant to something that I do regularly. Like I don't leverage memory a lot, but its default now, if you're just a vanilla user, is very oriented on that.
I was so anti-memory. I went like all in on memory at the beginning because I thought that was a great way to kind of like hack context. Because it was very obvious to me in the early days. My co-founder kind of taught me this. But Justin was basically like, it's not about prompt engineering, it's about context engineering.
Yeah, that's right.
And you don't need to give the context in the prompt. There are other ways you can do that. So I was doing all sorts of things with MD files, with Neo4j databases, and I was doing all that. But I honestly was really, really struggling until skills came out.
Yeah.
And I think skills was kind of the ultimate context engineering kind of hack. But I do find that until you've used it a little bit, it's fairly difficult to just comprehend exactly what a skill is doing from the very get-go. But if you kind of automate the whole thing and they get started with it, they might not even ever know a world where GPT doesn't actually know what you're talking about.
Well, Sterling, we have once again plumbed the depths of our knowledge for 28 minutes or whatever. I find myself, as I always do when we hang out, when I go move on to the next meeting or whatever, I'm like, I can't wait to not be in the next meeting so that I can try and apply what I just heard. And so your whole approach to an agent platform that does lots of work for your business is a thing that right now I haven't invested in. And I'm telling you, in another 45 days, I'll have something that'll blow your socks off.
I bet it'll happen sooner than that.
Probably happen soon.
We talked about agents today. We talked about kind of getting everybody to come along, teaching one-on-one versus in groups, how to know when your company has kind of hit that milestone of being really AI enabled and first. and talked a little bit about system trumps and the whole idea of context engineering. So it's a good episode. Aaron, as always, I come out of this meeting just wanting to build stuff and figure out how I can beat you in something else. But any last words you have?
If we heard something you didn't understand today, just ask Claude.
Just ask Claude. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.